G'day everyone, welcome back to my recap series of Australian Survivor. Today we're going to go through episode 5, where we got to see some more of the Brain tribe, which was really good and I'll get into that shortly. But firstly, contrasting the last episode, I'm going to start off with a quick recap of the Brawn tribe. So the Brawn tribe this episode was very much focused around Simon and his continual growth after escaping by the skin of his teeth at that previous tribal council. So he starts off the episode on his search for a hidden immunity idol, and in the end he does find it. It was a little risky at the start leaving it there after he saw it, but ultimately it was the best move after there were eyes on him when he first noticed it, and that idol alone has put him in a pretty good position with it on the surface, still looking like a 5-4 split, so now with the 4 having an idol, it looks like they're in really good shape. But his episode did not just end there, with Brawn tribe winning yet another reward challenge in the form of toasties. But that was barely the reward for Simon, with him finding another idol in the exact same day. Absolutely huge. This one, however, did not go unnoticed, with Gerald catching him in the act, and with him already having Simon in his sights. It'll be interesting to see what Gerald does with this information. It wasn't really touched upon for the remainder of the episode, but wow, what an episode for Simon, getting 2 idols after being on the minority for so long. So it seems like he could be a dangerous player moving forward in the game. Now, before we shift over to the Brains tribe, I just want to highlight from a production standpoint, I think there is a little bit too much emphasis on idols and advantages, and idols really being all what Survivor is about this season. I personally think the focus on idols is way too big. I really did not like the fact there was just one in a bag within a reward, and it was really just a gift to whoever found it. But ultimately, I think it really takes away from the character development and social interactions, which are extremely important to the game, especially in Australian Survivor, where there are these longer episodes where they can show more character moments within each and every season. There are still so many people within this game that I barely know anything about, so hopefully we can get to see more of them as the season unfolds, and not just in a one-off episode when they get taken out, much like Benny did in the previous episode. Alright, now we will move on to the Brains tribe, with them losing both the reward and immunity challenges this episode, which is a little bit out of the ordinary for them so far this season. But actually, on a positive production note, I like the fact that they mixed up the challenges this episode, with the reward challenge not being stacked in Braun's favour, and the puzzle component being taken out of the immunity challenge and switched it up with an alternate sector instead. I think the change in variety was needed. Also, one person to watch out for in the individual portion of the game in challenges is Hayley, if she does make it to merge. This woman is a beast. She beat Flick on the log roll, who's a professional surfer and someone who you think would dominate in that area of a challenge. She also beat a professional MMA fighter in a wrestling challenge earlier this season. She really does seem like a powerhouse that ticks all the boxes in challenges, so definitely one to keep an eye on as the season progresses. So now into the strategy of the Brains tribe. So George ends up telling Baden about his idol, where first I'm like, oh no, here we go again. Given that George and Baden have had a little bit of conflict so far this season, so I thought he could have tried to get him on his side without necessarily divulging that information. But turns out it was actually really well received by Baden. He responded extremely level-headed and said, in Survivor it doesn't matter who you are, every vote is worth the exact same amount, and he knows he needs numbers and votes to proceed further in the game. He realised that people don't share the idol with people they wish to vote off shortly after, so it was great for Baden to take this information on board. I'm actually loving this alliance between these two. I love the concepts of frenemies working together in Survivor, and as they both said, they don't necessarily need to get along to work together and vote together. And based on the edit, it really does seem like the definition of an unlikely alliance. However, I do feel like there is more than meets the eye in terms of this, and they likely had a bond before George gave him this information. So I kind of get this vibe as the episode goes on and then the Brains tribe lose immunity due to George messing up the ball rolling. As Joey was rounding up his troops to get George out, George already had numbers on his side in Way, Baden and Kara as well. So I really feel like he's grown in numbers since his first time over at Tribal Council. And as Braun has been in the firing line the past 2 episodes, and the focus has really been on idols, we haven't seen these relationships grow at the Brains camp, which is really a bit of a shame. However, with the edit we got, there was easily one of my favourite scenes of the season. So as Joey continued to put together the plan to get rid of George, George strolls in with the idol called Diego around his neck and acts like it's no big deal and there's nothing to see here, asking for some almonds. It was absolutely priceless. It was amazing. Again, I didn't know what his ultimate goal with this was, but whatever it was, it looked like it worked, with this causing Joey's foursome to change their plan immediately to Mitch, the next big strategist in the Brains tribe. So to the viewers, at least based on the edit prior to this episode, I think a lot of people expected once George rolled in with the idol around his neck, they were going to be like, okay, now everyone can split the votes between George and Wei, flush out the idol, but clearly that never crossed anyone's minds, as again, I feel like there was much more relationship building and alliance forming that we did not see since their previous tribal, which makes more sense as to why George was willing to make this move wearing the idol so openly. Now, I'm not going to lie, I thought we were really being set up for a Joey elimination this episode as it went on. It was really similarly edited to the Benny blindside in the previous episode, with Joey getting his big introduction and being the forefront of a lot of confessionals this episode, so a really good job to the production team for steering us down the wrong path. George's group of four decided not to go for Joey, but his right-hand girl in Laura, which left Haley and Rachel as the swing votes, and Mitch seemingly not in any alliance, locked in on voting for George no matter what. Now at this stage, I really wasn't 100% sure who was going to go home this episode. I still thought maybe Joey might have said something at Tribal and the votes got put on him. But if it was just between Laura and Mitch, I thought between the two it had to be Mitch, as I might have missed some confessionals here and there, but I still really don't think I know anything about Laura yet in this game. So when we got to Tribal, with my mind still being a bit up in the air of who was going to go home, I was actually more focused on how good of a job George did to put his name out of the vote and to be able to hold on to his idol in the process. And then Mitch telling George there's one less person to vote for due to him having it around his neck. I'm like, there's the message you need, George. There's the message you need to hold on to it. Well done, mate. Turns out Mitch may have actually thought everyone was still voting for George and then he said that as a decoy, but I was ultimately really impressed with George getting some alliance members, getting an idol, getting out of the firing line and getting to keep the idol. Well, that was until he played his idol anyway. I mean, I can understand why he did it with clearly being the target for most of the game, but he did such a good job in taking the target off his back that I really thought he would hold on to it, but he did not. He played it. He was on the minority still, and Mitch the middleman was sent home. Now, I don't know if this was actually the case, or if George was actually listening into people at Tribal Council in his decision of whether he's going to play his idol or not, but if he was planning on playing his idol all along, I personally wouldn't have showboated it to the rest of my tribe. This gave him the opportunity to switch up the vote, rather than all along they were going to pin the votes on George. So if he was going to play it all along, he should have let them pin the votes on him, played his idol, and then he could have negated those votes, and then definitely a member of the opposing alliance would have gone home, whether he had the numbers or not. But ultimately, the decision came down to Haley and Rachel, and they ended up joining Joey's foursome, which I can completely understand why, and it was probably the more level-headed move for them to make, with Joey's foursome seeming a lot more predictable and easy to read compared to the other side of the numbers. But in the end, with these numbers at the Brains tribe being much more divided than the edit has portrayed so far, there may actually be some fractures for the Brawn's tribe to slide in by the time tribe swaps occur now, so I don't think it was as clear cut as I thought it may have been leading up to this episode. Likely a tribe swap won't be too far away, so it will be interesting to see how it all plays out when it does happen. Again, I'm hoping to get some more intel into a lot of these players who haven't featured too often so far. But for now, we have one more episode around this week, which I'm really looking forward to. But for now, that's all from me. This is Analytical Strategy signing out once again. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.